there is a lot of baggage that you bring
Yeah.
to a marriage, and it's not necessarily that either of you are at fault or are attacking, one or the other, just the way you approach things. But at the core of fair play, the whole all time is created equal. I mean, I think that is a message that has to sit with you, and
Yeah.
we women have to accept that
Yeah.
and believe it before we can even expect our partner to believe that.
Hey, my name is Veronica Cisneros, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, a mama of 3 girls, and married for 23 years. I am obsessed with helping you navigate through the seasons of marriage, helping couples like you break free from feeling like roommates. I will teach you the secrets to having a healthy marriage by providing tools and tips to help you reconnect in a way that you can't keep your hands off each other, where flirting and kissing is the norm in your household. Setting intentional time to date, get to know and support each other's dreams and goals so that you can grow together without keeping score or judging one another. Where you feel seen and heard even when you disagree. Where arguments end with mutual respect and understanding. Where you work together to build and strengthen your family so no one feels like they're carrying the weight of the family on their own. These are the necessary skills your children need for you to model so that they develop healthy relationships and thrive in life. This is the Empowered and Unapologetic Podcast. Emily, hello. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Veronica. I'm thrilled to be here.
So, okay, you and I met on social media. Right? We totally met on social media. And, after having a brief conversation with you, it was like, oh my gosh, I have to have her on this podcast. I have to have her on the podcast. And I'm so excited for what you have in store for the audience, and primarily like just you being so open and so willing to share your story, especially not only with my audience but obviously with the world, and we'll get into what that means in a minute. But Emily, if you can share with us your story.
Sure. And again, thank you, Veronica, for the chance to be on your podcast. I love the Empowered and Unapologetic podcast, and even your intro just resonates with me in all the ways. So I'm kind of fangirling here to speak with you. So I guess I could give you the Cliff's notes of my story. That I'm a mom to 2 girls. I do live in the Metro Detroit area. I have a husband. We've been married 14 years. I have been an entrepreneur for 13 of those years. I really feel like we had a really great balanced partnership
Yeah.
until we had children. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that was a bit of our story. Is okay. I really felt like, an empowered entrepreneur. I really felt like we had a really strong partnership and teamwork approach in our relationship. And then once those, little humans get added to the mix,
Yeah.
that's where, like so many people, life got complicated. Not only as a mom, but as a woman, as a business owner,
Yeah.
and really as a partner. So I know I just said it's the Cliffs Notes version, so we'll talk about a lot more. But I'm certainly someone who I enjoy all the roles. We women are so multifaceted, and we are so many roles. But it was a couple of years ago that I really started to scratch my head and kind of ask myself the same question that so many women do, and that's, well, how did I get here? Like on paper,
Yeah.
I have so much, and I'm so proud of the things I've done. But why am I just feeling like things could be better?
Yes. I love that. I love how you phrase that. Why am I feeling like things can be better? Like, one thing I get from a lot of women is I have the dog, I have the house, I have, maybe not the white picket fence, but close to it. Like I have all of these things. Why am I still feeling like something's missing? Or why am I starting to keep score? Why am I starting to see my husband a little differently? Like I love him, or there's sometimes where I want to just shake the shit out of him. Like, well, what is this? Right? What is this? What am I feeling? And so you were in this documentary called Fair Play. Take me through it. How did you and your husband get to be a part of something so great?
Well, thank you. So Fair Play is a New York Times bestselling book written by a woman named Eve Rodsky. And so that book is her baby and just part of her genius work. The documentary was turned in, I'm sorry, the book was turned into this documentary of the same name, Fair Play.
Hmm.
And it was produced by Hello Sunshine, and it was written and directed by Jennifer Siebel Newsom, who is an award-winning documentary filmmaker. And really, this documentary, although it's based off of a book, it is not simply the movie version of the book.
No.
Eve's book, and you can hear, listen, anything about Eve, but her book really examines the imbalance of household labor that historically falls on women. And so Jennifer Siebel Newsom took the opportunity to document basically a number of families and how they approached the division of labor. My husband and I were one of a few families that the film crew followed over a 2-year period. Now the film crew would come to our house about quarterly, and sometimes they were there for a day, sometimes two, but it was all filmed during COVID. So I definitely joke about, just having to swab our noses to be able to have
Yeah.
this strange project going on. But really, how we got the opportunity, just like you and I met on social, I had met Eve through social media around the time of her book coming out, kept in touch. The pandemic just started, and that's when we blew the doors down to working from home. And it was around the beginning of the pandemic when she sent me this DM that I really say changed my life. And I don't mean change my life with like, oh, exciting project documentary. It sounds super glamorous, but changed my life that it forced my husband and I to really
Yeah.
work on our relationship in a way that I don't think I would have in any sort of small seek out, assistance on my own. So this documentary came our way with Eve saying, "I'm working on a project, and
Hmm.
we have a documentary that's been green lighted by Hello Sunshine, and I'd love to hear if you and Neil are interested in being a part of this project."
Yeah, I love that. One thing that really intrigued me about this documentary and even about Fair Play is is just how common this is. How common this is in, like, not only one or two households, most of our households, and how we don't talk about this at all. And it's not something that, even us women are willing to go ahead and share with even our closest friends. And partly because of, and this is something that's touched on in the documentary, but partly because of, society, and how things are supposed to be framed and wrapped and packaged all beautifully. And the other part, just because there is this level of expectation placed on women, there is this level of expectation placed on what the household should look like, and how each person needs to play a role in making sure to execute that mission. And so I love being able to go ahead and see, different couples of different ages, of different, I should say, financial classes, and even of different ethnicities. And you just see with all of these differences, there's just a continuous pattern, and some of those that I'll definitely highlight here is, there's contempt, where one partner positions themselves higher than the other. Most of them were men, right? The husbands were positioning themselves because they were, the primary breadwinner, or not even the primary breadwinner, and still they were still, because of the fact that they were male, they were still positioned higher than female. Another thing is, the amount of criticism. I remember there was one thing that was said, with regards to anytime, a woman would complain, and it's like, here we go, making a, making a, why can't I think of that dang name? Like, I'm making a something out of a hill. Why can't I think? Oh,
Oh, a mountain out of a
there we
molehill,
go.
right?
There
That
we go. Why
expression.
couldn't why
Uh-huh.
couldn't I think of that?
It's all good.
I've heard my husband say that, and he almost died that day. But yeah, but yeah, it's like, it's the same thing. So there's an amount of criticism. And then in addition to that, you also see stonewalling, where the minute, one woman, the wife brings up a very uncomfortable conversation, how the husband would kind of like just pull back and, remove themselves from the conversation altogether, right?
Mhm.
So I'm watching all of these dynamics play out in every single relationship. And I literally felt like when I was watching that, I'm like, oh my God, did they record me and I never knew? Like, because it's like I hear this every day. Um, and just to see it, um, to actually, be the audience versus the facilitator,
Mhm.
it was nice. It was nice and it was refreshing. Not that I want couples to suffer. That's not why I'm saying it was refreshing. It was refreshing in the fact that it is being brought out to light, and we are having conversations about it.
Mhm.
And it provided me with a sense of hope, because anybody that watches that documentary will be able to see themselves in it, right?
You're so right. I mean, there's so much you brought up. One of the first things you mentioned was just the whole systemic issue piece. I remember having to Google, like, what is systemic issue? Like, what does
Yeah.
that even mean? And then again, if millions of people are facing this, we're not a unique couple, which is sad and comforting at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And so that was something too that I guess as a person who felt like I tried to get ahead of things. Like I tried to be aware.
Yes.
We when we are young, and if we go down the path of getting married, most people in an early age are not already parents when they choose a life partner. And so you do the best you can, but for goodness sake, like you only can see so far out ahead of you.
Yeah.
So I went through that whole phase of trying to look back and say, almost, were there things that I missed? Like, were there parts of my
Yes.
husband's personality that I missed? Not to say that he was flawed, but I just was
Mhm.
desperate to like grab some sort of explanation of, again, how did we get to this imbalanced
Yeah.
state? And part of the documentary too was unpacking some of the how we got here, and we really dug deeper into, well, what was modeled to you as a
Bingo.
child.
Bingo.
And so what it did, Veronica, is really at least just it almost helped me release some resentment, because while I'm not here to say like, oh, he's off the hook, I
No.
was at least able to see that there is just a lot of complexities and conditioning and expectations going on that we just didn't have really ever have a chance to
No.
avoid.
No. I was really, really happy to see that. What a lot of people don't know is we all bring in past generational trauma to our relationship.
Mm.
We have been conditioned to behave a certain way. We have been conditioned to believe certain things. And when there's that unhealed pain, yeah, you bring that into the relationship unknowingly. It's not like we're intentionally doing this, and it is something that needs to be covered, and it needs to definitely be worked on, so that you know you're able to see your partner not as the enemy, but you're able to see, wait a minute, so your parents didn't teach you how to set boundaries. And what your parents or what your mom did teach you was that if you even attempted to set a boundary with her, she would disown you. And she taught you that by disowning her own sister. And so now, whenever we go to her house, you know, you won't, it feels like you won't stand up for me, but the reality is you have a hard time standing up even for yourself, because you're afraid of her abandoning you and leaving the relationship altogether. And so you've been used to staying quiet and silent, and not necessarily giving her permission to disrespect, but that's what it looks like. You've just been taught to kind of like, okay, this happened, let's brush it under the rug, she doesn't mean it, we're fine. And now what you're trying to get me to do is conform and do the same thing. And it's not because you don't want to protect me, or it's not because you're picking your mom over me, but instead it's like, you're asking me to conform to the same house rules you lived under. And that's where
Interesting.
a lot of couples struggle with. And it's something that I do with a lot of my couples is, what were your house rules? What were your house rules? If let's say, if Neil invited you over to his house when he was a kid, like, what were the unspoken house rules? And it really helps clients. Obviously, the creators of Fair Play have a more than likely a different approach. But it really does help my clients not see their partner as enemy, more or less have a better understanding. And this beautiful thing happens once we do that exercise. You'll start to see, each partner's guard come down,
Mm.
and you'll see that you'll see that compassion, and you'll also be witness to, oh, I've seen your mom do that several times, not only with me but also with this person. And oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Your dad does the same thing. And it ends up being, instead of you critique, the let's say the woman for this one, the woman
Mhm.
critiquing, his family, to having a better understanding of, this is how the family functions and this is how the family survives. And so instead of me trying to disrupt this and change it all together, understanding it so that way my partner and I can learn healthy boundaries on how to develop a new way, that doesn't fall into criticism or, shaming or any of those things. So I was really glad to see some of that in this documentary, and for the two of you as well.
Well, again, thank you for that example because, again, it validates what we learned of just there is a lot of baggage that you bring
Yeah.
to a marriage. And it's not necessarily that either of you are at fault or are attacking, one or the other, just the way you approach things. But at the core of fair play, the whole all time is created equal. I mean, I think that is a message that has to sit with you, and
Yeah.
we women have to accept that
Yeah.
and believe it before we can even expect our partner to believe that.
Of course.
And again, that's where it gets into, well, do I make less? Do I make, more? Like, how are you valuing, an hour for an hour?
Yeah.
And again, with societal conditioning, telling us that an hour of earning power at X is more valuable than, as Eve says, an hour of holding your child's hand in the pediatrician's office. Until you start to see those things as being of equal value, you're constantly exchanging different currency. So that was something too that not only bringing Neil on board and helping him understand how my time was used. And Eve talks in the documentary about when I don't have a say in how I use my time, that's the ultimate unfairness.
Hmm.
And so that was something. And then also just making the invisible work visible because, we women, and I am guilty of it myself, like they can't do it the right way. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, they can,
Hmm.
they, and they might not know all that needs done. And so that's a process. It's not just a one-time download, like here are the steps to bedtime, get
Yeah.
it done my way
Bingo.
or else. Um, there's again a whole fair play system of like, well, what does bedtime look like at our house? And
Yeah.
holy cow, there really are a lot of steps to bedtime. And so unpacking that at least brought some visibility to what otherwise was not even seen and therefore not appreciated.
Absolutely. What would you say is one of your biggest hurdles as a high achieving woman, entrepreneur, mom, wife, all of the things? What has been your biggest hurdle?
Well, just like we women are so notorious for putting ourselves last, one of the problems I run into is I put my business to the back burner. I won't say last, but in my situation, being self-employed, something that fulfills me professionally. And again, it's not just about being self-employed; it's just having my element of professional fulfillment. I back burner it because it's an extension of myself, and I worked so hard to be able to call my own shots and, be
Yeah.
my own boss
Yeah.
and have that coveted flexibility long before the pandemic, but at least have that golden thing that my mom never had. My mom had a 9 to 5 butt in seat, not able to come to the soccer practice or do the bake sales. So when I got flexibility, I was leaning into it. And then my husband was leaning on me because
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm flexible. I work for myself. I
Yeah.
can do this. And that to me is where that was my biggest hurdle is that I unfortunately, treated my business just like I treat myself.
Yeah. Um, and one thing for a good majority of us is, we'll do that, and then we'll completely drown ourselves in our work, as a form of a distraction. And, I appreciate how you said earlier, trying to find what is the answer. Like in a job, we're able to go ahead and, execute a mission. We know, this is the problem. This is how we're going to go ahead and execute it. We have a whole plan. With our kids, it's not so clear cut sometimes, depending on their mood, but they're still like, I'm going to go ahead and execute this mission. When we start to bring in our husbands into executing the mission, we want it done a certain way. I can't tell you how many women will complain to me, Veronica, and that's actually one of my, like, the podcast that gets listened to, like, it's like the highest rated, is how do I get my husband to help more? And one thing that I say over and over again is, it's okay to allow him to fail. Like, it's okay that he's not going to do it your way. I know for me, one thing I found, and I didn't like it so much, was, holy crap, like, Willie not only can do it, but he can totally do it even better than I can. And it's like, when I stopped trying to dictate, how Willie connected with the girls, when I stopped trying to dictate, how the house was clean, or how laundry was done, or how the bills were paid. Because all I was doing was, I was like, okay, that's checked, that's checked, that's checked. But it wasn't even really checked. It was like, okay, I'm on it, but it was paused, and this was paused, and this was paused. And I had all of these things that were paused that would unpause themselves. And it just felt like, oh my God, this is too much. And I'm the only one that could do this, because if I leave it to my husband, well, we're going to miss our deadline, or we're going to miss this, or we're going to miss this. And, one thing I want to hit on is, what was that grieving process like for you once you started to pull back and, allowed your husband and supported your husband in parenting, and supported your husband in, taking over?
Well, I go back to, there was a clip in the documentary, and it's one of the ones that I took TikTok that, I got a lot of comments about, my life too, me, same. And it was
Yeah.
the whole, I don't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned, releasing the way that it's done. I felt like my struggle was just, can you please just see what needs done? Like,
Mhm.
I really don't care how you do bedtime. I just want you to see that it needs done. And not to mention, this isn't like a one-off, one-time need. This needs
Yeah.
done every single day. So that was the biggest thing we worked on, and that I guess more like what I embraced change. I embraced the fact that if you now see that this is something that needs done, and I'm not going to ask you for help, and I'm certainly not going to consider it a favor,
Yeah.
because this is shared work.
Yeah. Saying just my responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that was a real, I guess, just changed our perspective. I know you just brought up, like, wow, that's great to see that he can not only do it, he can do it better. And then there's probably emotion that goes with that.
Of course.
I I just wanted to get
You're like,
my
I didn't give
partner
a shit
to
how he did it. I
see.
just want him to do it. Awesome. High
Right,
five.
right. Just wanted him to see what needed done and take the initiative to do it. And I'm not, shaming my husband and saying he,
No.
is lazy and unable to do it.
No.
It just boggled my mind. And then when I would talk to friends, people would say, like, that's just how men are. And I also couldn't accept that. Like,
No.
what do you
No.
mean? Like, that can't be. And then, with Fair Play, you learn, like, there actually are massive health benefits, and there's satisfaction and gratification out of men being involved as caregivers. So, getting on board with it's like a lot of big changes,
Yes.
to not only recognize them but then apply and then repeat. It's a whole lifestyle, to work at your partnership in this manner. But yeah, there's a long answer to your short question.
Hey there, high achieving moms and wives. Are you tired of feeling like something's missing in your marriage? Well, buckle up, because I'm about to reveal the missing puzzle piece that will bring back the romance, intimacy, and equality you've been craving. I understand what you're going through. It's not just about the occasional date night or a box of chocolates. It's about creating a deep emotional connection, feeling truly understood, and being on the same page when it comes to parenting. You want more than just a teammate. You want a partner who supports you, lifts you up, and shares the responsibilities of life. But let's be real, finding that balance isn't easy. That's why my 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work program is here to guide you every step of the way. In just 12 weeks, I will help you build the foundation of a rock-solid relationship, one that's built on romance, intimacy, and equality. Imagine rekindling that spark, reigniting the passion, and discovering a whole new level of emotional security and communication with your partner. It's time to break free from the mundane and reignite the fire. But wait, you might be thinking, what have I tried already? Trust me, we've seen it all. Couples who've tried everything from fancy date nights to self-help books. And while those things have their place, they often miss the mark when it comes to true transformation. That's where my expertise comes in. As a licensed marriage and family therapist with a decade of experience, I've honed my skills in helping couples like you create lasting change. Together, we'll tackle the root issues and provide you with practical tools that actually work. So don't settle for an average marriage when extraordinary is within reach. Head over to veronicacisneros.org/coaching right now to learn more about this program and apply. Remember, spots are limited, so don't wait. This is your chance to finally have the romance, intimacy, and equality you've been yearning for. It's time to reclaim your emotional connection, support each other, and become the unstoppable team you were meant to be. Let's rewrite the story of your marriage together. Visit veronicacisneros.org/coaching and take the first step towards a love that exceeds your wildest dreams. The journey to a fulfilling marriage starts now. Don't miss out. So what are you waiting for? Go to veronicacisneros.org/coaching and let's transform your relationship. No, I like it. There is a grieving period though, right? Like, and in the grieving period, what I mean by that is, you've been in charge of all of these responsibilities, and like, you no longer have to do those things. Like I know for me, I had it in my mind that, all of the kids' food would be like, I would have home cooked meal. And I remember, and this was a long time ago, but I remember like, I would literally have the menu of like what we were going to eat for the week. And I was not an entrepreneur then. But I remember like, I'd have the menu of what we were going to eat for the week. I prided myself in the cookbooks that I had, and like the ones, the recipes that I wrote down or whatever it was, like that was something so big for me. And once Willie started to go ahead and take on our finances, or Willie started to take on like, even, when, the girls, if I had like a work trip, and for instance, I'll be going away. I have a speaking engagement to go to in Denver, and it's my kid's first day of school is on the same day that I speak, Mother of the Year. Right. And it's like, before I would have freaked out, like, oh my gosh, Willie's going to do their hair. Like there's going to be all kinds of bumps, like all of these things. And there was a part of me that it was coming to terms of like, I don't have to be the person that does everything all the time anymore, and I can take a step back, because it wasn't like Willie was like, okay, I'll do it, the whole time. He was like following me around saying he was going to do it. But once I started to like voice the fact that I did need help, and voice that maybe it's not normal to carry 15 bags of groceries and a gallon of milk in one trip. Maybe that's like not healthy, like once I started to realize those things, and I started to voice this, like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. This is a lot. Like, this is way too much, and these are the areas where, these are my non-negotiables. These are my areas of flexibility. And I really started to implement a lot of what I was, working on my clients with. That's when I started to see a lot of things change. And in that time of change, like, although I appreciated all of the help Willie was giving me, it was also like, it almost felt like that I don't want to say she had to completely die. But that mindset of thinking that I had to be the one that did it all, that mindset I had to work on and let go of and change.
Interesting. Well, you just described it as grieving. Is that just acknowledging that there was a part of you you had to release? I mean, I guess I almost look at that
Yeah.
as, I love metaphors, like you have to unlearn and relearn or change how you're
Yes.
hardwired, and that's uncomfortable. But I never thought of it as like grieving a version of yourself.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Hmm. Well, Veronica, not to turn in and start
No,
asking you
let's do it.
questions, but by
Let's
all
do it.
means, I guess one of the things too that, and I don't know if you remember this scene in the documentary where, check-ins, magical communication, like, wow, what do you know?
Yeah.
Communication can make a huge difference. That was an area that we were just
Struggling.
grossly, yeah,
10-minute conversation.
under, yes, we're just
Mhm.
not doing enough communicating. And I started to feel like when I finally did have a window of time to talk, I had such a backlog of things
Of
to go through
everything.
that I never got through the list to even talk about like casual things.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm curious with your work and with even your own life experience with, do you really feel like communication is such a major part in partnership? Because I'm still trying to figure out how to get better at that, and I feel like it's
Yeah.
super universal.
I love this question, and I love that you're asking questions. So the biggest thing is, yeah, is communication important? Yes. Is it of great importance? Is it like the number one thing that's going to keep a marriage alive? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The number one key that's going to keep a marriage alive is friendship. Are you guys
Mm,
the best of friends? Can I trust that you will be there? Can I trust,
wow.
not like you'll be there to have like my back when it comes to diaper duty? Can
Mhm.
I trust that you will be there when I'm struggling with emotions? And I can trust that I can share this information, and feel validated by you. That right there takes skill. Can I trust this? Can I trust that you will be there? And can I be vulnerable with you? Or do I feel as if, I have to have my guard up? Am I unable to have uncomfortable conversations because I can't trust that, you know, the bear, will come out and you'll bite my head off? Like, those are the things that are so key in building up a very healthy relationship, is being the best of friends. And a lot of couples think that, oh yeah, we are best of friends. But the minute I ask them, when did you lose your best friend? When do you feel like you lost your best friend? And then when did you stop being your husband's best friend? That's when the truth comes out. Well,
Mm,
after I felt criticized by him for pursuing my dreams, once I started to go ahead and work out, and then he would ask me, well, why are you working out? And he would try to, keep me from working out. Or once I started to, really, have conversations about him, about the things that I was struggling with, and just noticing maybe some of the things, noticing maybe he wasn't happy, but he would shut down. Like, we're not the best of friends then. We're more
mm.
like roommates, or we're now teammates that are, we have a job to do and we're getting it done. But that level of connection, it's not there. It's like this business interaction.
Interesting.
So you can communicate in a business interaction, which is great. And if we're just teaching I skills to a couple, you're not going to go anywhere. But if I can teach you both how to be the best of friends by being the best version of yourself, an exceptional version of yourself, so that you can share that exceptional version with your partner, then what I'm doing is I'm teaching you guys how to be independent so you guys can be interdependent. The goal isn't
Wow.
we're going to communicate to fix our marriage. The goal is then I'm going to go ahead and work on the issues that I bring into the relationship. I'm going to work on my insecurities. I'm going to do that work, so I don't need you. I want to be with you. And it's not this like back and forth set of expectations that each one of us have to meet. Instead, it's like, I am figuring this out, and I trust that you are doing the same thing. It might not be at the same pace, it might not
Hmm.
be the same way. I can trust that my best friend is doing the same thing. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to monitor it. I don't have to take it over. I don't even have to fix it. Right?
Wow. I know you can. I'm literally making notes.
No, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Thank you. No, that was really great feedback because again, communication is key, but I love your metaphor of, well, business partners can be better at communicating, but the friendship piece. I mean, I even, if you even use a litmus test of there are 10 tasks that need done, like if it was you and your friend, literal friend,
Yeah.
of course it's your friend. You're going to help them out. Like you're going to
Bingo.
share the load.
Done.
And again, you're going to share it fairly. It doesn't have to be you take 5 things, I take 5 things. But to me, when you make it as simple as, well, you're not going to leave your friend hanging with all the work to do,
No.
then that's something. So I appreciate you saying that. And throughout the year, after the documentary came out, I mean, of course I'm on social, right, as we are, and it's been really, it has been neat to see fair play content come out from people, because fair play is a lens. I mean, it's literally a lens that you see things through and you really can't unsee. And
No.
so when you watch a lot of, I watch certain social content that shows, the jokes about, it's summer now, and mom is packing all the snacks and mom is doing the sunscreen and mom and mom and mom. And then, dad's sitting there having a beer. Like that's not funny anymore. Like
No.
that to me, that's the fair play lens that you can't unsee the world through. And so again, when I look back to what you just said about, like, would you do that to your friend? Like, would you just sit
Yeah.
back and let your friend handle everything? Of course not. And over time, then I feel like we probably develop our own protection and defense mechanisms. And then it leads to, being roommates. But now I'm down my own path here. But
No, I love that. I love that. And you know, with our best friend, even when they come up with ideas, even when they come up with goals, we're not going to allow our fears to become their fears. We're going to support them. And yeah, they might come up with some wild dream, and trusting that. And I know that that was something I needed to work on for myself with my husband. You know, for me, it was like when Willie would make a decision, it was like, okay, well, did he do this? Did he do this? Did he do this? Did this get done? I was so used to being that person because that's who I was in my family, with my
right.
mom and dad. Like that's, I needed to be that person because there was a lot of factors that played into whether or not we were safe or what that looked like. I don't know if you know, but my dad was an alcoholic and heroin addict, and he was a very high well-known gang member. And so, that's where I resided. I resided in that spot of making sure I checked all the boxes and made sure everything was done because I cannot trust anyone to take my position. I didn't know I was doing that with my husband, and it was hard for me to kind of pull back and trust that Willie has our best intentions. Like, and it really fell down to or came down to one question. Who is Willie at his core? Who is Willie at his core? And at his core, like if Willie can, ship us to an island and we were the only ones on the islands, like that's where my husband would put us, like on an island, we'd get food delivered and he would have us to himself. Like that's my husband, And so the minute I started thinking about that, it was like he wouldn't put us in harm's way. And it was really hard to let down that guard. Like I literally felt myself letting that guard
Okay.
and knowing that he has nothing but the greatest intentions for the girls and I. You know, there was still a little bit of that voice that would go, well, if he had the greatest intentions, then he would remember to this, or if he had the greatest, intentions, he wouldn't do this, or why did he say this? Like, and that all falls in line with like a lot of the thought distortions we come up with, and we create these stories
Right.
all based off of our emotions, but the minute I was able to like at his core, that's when it was like, oh my gosh, I could breathe. I could trust, you know? And that's
Mm.
where, well, then if I can breathe and I can trust, then I can let down my guard and I could be his best friend, and I can actually, when we do have conversations, I don't always have to have my guard up, and I can actually hear, what he has to say
Mm.
and not personalize it as this personal attack and him trying to change me. I can actually hear what he's saying. And even though I might not agree with everything he's saying, I can listen for an ounce of truth in what he's saying and listen to understand his perspective. We don't have to go back and forth. Like it's not a case of who wins the argument.
it falls back to, what Gottman calls yielding to win.
Mm, interesting. I just saw a post about zero sum games, right? If you're saying the last word to win that argument, like, are you really the winner? Like if
Yeah.
it's between you and your partner, but that's probably another topic. But no, I appreciate you explaining how you had to not change your perspective, just look differently and find the common denominator of what he does have you and your daughter's best intentions. So, and finding out that again, just because that night bedtime wasn't led by my husband doesn't mean that he isn't still loving us in a different way. So then you go back and forth with this whole like, I want to change the way we operate, but I don't want to give people a pass, like out of like, oh, it's fine. This is just how you were conditioned.
Yeah.
So it's been a very complicated journey. But looking at it as that, it's not a destination and it just takes ongoing work. And that's at least what gives me hope. I mean, at first I felt like, okay, just by going through something, then we're going to make change. But it's not that simple. Like you do have to work at it. But I also, as I said, have just changed my perspective of this is not something that gets caught on film and gets a system and implemented. I think when I first talked, like learning how to eat healthy or like an exercise regimen, like you can't just have one healthy meal and expect to reap the benefits and really know how to make healthy meals every day. Then it does take ongoing work and a lot of little tools along the way. So I thank you for your insight.
Yes. What would you say is one of the what would you say is one of the road bumps that you guys are still experiencing today?
Falling back into old patterns.
Yeah. I love
And
that you said that. Yeah.
I think
Relapse
so.
is big. Relapse is a real thing.
Yeah. And with that, the whole seasonality component, I mean, I know we're at the tail end here of summer. And so sometimes you just say, wait a minute, like we just got our system figured out in one season of the year, with kids' routines and whatnot. And then you look at the summer and you feel like, well, hi, I've taken on far more than I should. And then you say, well, why? Is it because I've been defaulted, or it's literally just a byproduct of your family having a different routine and a different dynamic? And wanting to that pressure, the world tells you, be grateful, enjoy every last sunset and sunrise with the kids, which you try to, but it still makes it difficult. So and then you go, wait a minute, where are our check-ins? Wait a minute, where is our awareness? So falling back into old patterns and then just saying, okay, well, time to get back on the wagon.
Yeah. In what way? Well, what is one thing I can help you guys in or you in?
Oh gosh, that's such a wonderful question. Well, one of the things, Veronica, that we talked a little bit. I've spent a lot of time talking about my personal life, but with my professional role, my business, we absolutely help women take their step into entrepreneurship and primarily as freelance social media managers. So I guess one thing I'd ask your help with is just, I can teach them all the best processes to run a business, and I can teach them tactics to actually be, the best social media manager they could be. But I guess I just wonder if there's any advice you would have or things that I can share with them more about how to have that awareness of what an imbalance in your home can actually do to you in your profession, because that's what I wasn't accepting. I was like, I can separate. I'm Emily at home and I'm Emily the professional, and realizing that no, like you can't separate it. And so I try really hard to come up with a way to bring that same awareness to women without them having to go through all the bumps that I went through.
The biggest thing that I would, or the greatest feedback I can give you is, how intentional are you? And that's a question I would ask them. How intentional are you? And what are the lies you tell yourself? That's a big one. I tend to work with a lot of high achieving women. And for them, it's like, well, my kids already are off to bed, and so I miss bedtime. It's not a big deal. Or, okay, so our date nights were supposed to be on Tuesday. However, my husband looks tired. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I'll go ahead and do work here. And, one question I'll ask them is, how intentional are you at home? When you're not fixing everything, how often do you allow yourself to just be versus trying to go ahead and orchestrate, you know, this plan or orchestrate this day.
Really?
Um, and one quick story that I'll share with you is it was brought to my attention when we were taking family pictures.
Okay.
And I remember, we're taking family pictures and it was for a Christmas card. And I remember we're taking the pictures and Willie's over there throwing the kids, turning them upside down. Their hair's all crazy, getting all messed up. And I'm like, will you just I have all the pictures
Uh-huh.
that I want to copy on Pinterest.
Uh-huh.
I've like or I've pinned them all. I've already given the photographer every single picture. Like, just please, please, please post this way, smile this way, look this way, not this way. We're supposed to be in the moment, And I remember getting our pictures back, and I swear to you, Emily, I look like I was psychotic. I
Oh,
look like I was Willie, like, the photographer ended up taking all of those candid pictures, and they were all of Willie. None of them were of me because I was not in the moment at all. I was trying to create the moment when it was already there. And so that's where I would go, is how often do you allow yourself to experience the moment? And
mm,
then what are the lies you tell yourself? For me, the lie that I told myself was, I need to get the best picture and I'm going to get it this way. And
mm.
that Christmas card ended up being of Olive Willie.
Yeah.
Willie. So it was only a few pictures. And it was just because, like, the pictures were so powerful. And it was just like, he was just being him as a father,
Mm.
and I don't know, it was beautiful. And I remember looking at the pictures and it's like, well, shit, like, God, I robbed myself from those moments, you know?
Well, you
And-
probably did a lot of invisible labor to even get to that
Oh,
moment, so I'll give you
thousand,
the credit for that one, my
thousand
friend.
percent, 1000%. Yeah. Well,
Well,
Emily,
thank you, because intentionality, like you said, like with the women that I surround myself with, that we train, that's a good way to frame it. Thank you.
I would definitely ask them questions on how often are you intentional, and give me some examples. Give me some
Mhm.
examples of when you're being intentional. And I mean, because you could tell us there's a problem. You could tell us that there's a problem all day. That doesn't mean,
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, so what, you're going to get the answer of, yeah, so what, my husband doesn't help and doesn't support me in the business, but he will once I make this amount, or he will once this is done, or once we figure this out. And that's not going to happen. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen. Like, I'm not saying that they're doomed to fail, but it's not going to happen because we don't realize that there's change needed. It's not until you, like, literally show us, like, no, this is really what it's looking like. How many times have you told yourself that you're going to miss bedtime stories? Or how many times have you told yourself that, working a 14-hour, work day, I know that's exaggerated, but working a 14-hour work day is fine. And
Sure.
going to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, and making sure you check all the boxes, put the kids to bed, have sex with husband, wait for him to sleep, and then start working. Like, how long can you do that?
Right. And that literally goes full circle to the fair play of, like, what the way we were operating just wasn't sustainable. It just wasn't.
No.
Something's got to give, and we're still, figuring out what that looks like. But I think, to your point of high achieving women, or women just doing what, fills their cup, that is outside of their role as moms, because isn't that exciting now that, like, that's more of a common thing. Like, we don't have to just be moms.
Yeah.
That that you will have to be intentional about what you choose, and let's not just go through this
Yeah.
hamster wheel of, like, doing it all because that's what we want. Like, luckily we are past the point of saying we should have it all, and that is something that we want. No, we don't want it all.
Even that part, even that part, Emily, that you just said, like, with you and Neil, like, we have to figure that part out. Like, being able to share that with your clientele, and, you know, being as open as you want to that process of, like, yes, we did this and it was a great experience and we learned so much. And there are we are starting to experience, some relapse, and what that looks like for you, and what your plan is to go ahead and prevent relapse from
Hmm.
happening, you know
Hmm. Thank
mean,
you.
obviously we could talk about this forever.
I love it. No, I really appreciate it. And not only have you, given me insight personally, I appreciate you looking through the fair play lens, and then again, just applying it to, you are an entrepreneur as well. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. And,
Nope.
when women take that brave step to potentially follow some passion, whatever that ends up looking like,
Yeah.
you do have to realize how much of how you operate at home is going to impact your ability to make those contributions to the world as your
Bingo.
best professional self.
Bingo. Emily, thank you so much for being on. This was amazing. I feel like we've known each other forever.
I know. No, I'm so excited. Well, again, longtime listener, so thank you for having me, but thank you for all the work you do for us women.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Of course, we'll keep in touch.
Definitely.
Let's be honest, we can all use a little help in our marriage, especially when it comes to communicating. I have created a guide just for you. 5 things that are killing your marriage, tips from a therapist. Find out if you are making these marriage mistakes. Ladies, this guide is 100% free. I will give you practical tips and easy to use strategies to apply right away. You all know I'm a huge advocate for couples. I am on a mission to help you and your partner experience stress-free living. With this free guide, we are setting our marriages up for success. But it starts with you. You will find this free guide here in the show notes, or go to www.veronicacisneros.org. The information I will be providing you is next level, and people pay good money to get these tips that I will be giving you for free. Don't forget to share this with a friend. What's up, ladies? Just want to let you guys know that your ratings and reviews for this podcast are greatly appreciated. If you love this podcast, please go to iTunes right now, write a review, rate the episode, and subscribe. Don't forget to share it with your friends.
Addiction impacts all of us. Addiction's consequences run through all of us. From ourselves to our loved ones and through our communities, addiction creates so much loss and grief. My name is Dwayne Osterlin, and I'm the host of the Addicted Mind podcast, a show featuring personal stories, expert guests, and vital information about addiction and addiction recovery. We'll talk with leading treatment providers to discuss the latest research and treatment options for this devastating disease and advocate for mental health awareness. We discuss topics like the importance of creating a community of support, to helping loved ones, to some of the latest research on psychedelic medicines. The Addicted Mind podcast has been about creating hope, listening to stories of many amazing people that have overcome addiction and are thriving. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, subscribe to the Addicted Mind podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or check out theaddictedmind.com. New episodes every Monday. See you there.